This video is about mapping values. Class 3 concentrates more on learning to see large masses of gradations by squinting. We artists spend a lot of time squinting because it fuzzes out the details into broad masses that can then be used to create a visual gradation map. For your homework, you're going to be required to do thumbnails, and then we're going to select your favorite and best thumbnail, and we're going to refine it into a better drawing and a better composition. And then you will create a map of the values of your subject. Once you've settled on your final composition for your homework, you'll draw this map using 5 to 7 values ranging from white highlights to the darkest dark of the subject. This generalized value map helps you to compare the relative values of each area next to the other. This is also called simultaneous contrast, so that you can make sure they are working together. Part of that working together is making sure that each value area matches the areas of similar value of your entire subject. Begin to help you start thinking about mapping. This section right here is a section of a single value. When you squint, there's a little bit of a difference, but we can make this become a single value. This area forms another value. This area is pretty much the same value as this, whereas, and I'm hoping you can see this interior, but my perspective is different from yours, so I'm not sure. This dark interior forms another value gradation. Now, if we start comparing across the entire subject, this value is very similar to this area, to this area, to this area, here, here, broad areas in here, here, and here, a little bit in here. Those would be a single value. The values that would match this, here, 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 those in other places, those would be another value gradation. Then you have this, which is similar to this, so which is similar to here, which is similar to here, to here. So this would form another value gradation within the map. You want to try and stick between 5 and 7, because once you get over 7, you start getting too many values and it starts to get visually confusing to have that many values. Now, to begin, you're going to need a single light source, just like we have a single light source in the sun. This particular lamp that I'm using right here, I have a 5000 Kelvin LED inside it, and it's fairly cool. I have also used in the past 2500 Kelvin, which is warmer. But then I started taking photography with the 2500 light, and it is just so warm. I realized that it was affecting my color. It was warming it up too much. The 5000K is very similar to the sunlight outside, so it is giving me a much more accurate rendering of the color than the 2500. So I want to show you what happens if we add 2 light sources. Now, with 2 light sources, notice we have 2 cast shadows. We also, you can start seeing there's a vast difference. If we look like right here. So we've got 2 light sources, which once you take out the cast shadows is really confusing for the viewer because they have no idea which way the light is coming from. And skilled artists, my fellow co-teachers, when we look at your independent projects for graduation, we will be able to tell if you are using multiple light sources. It's quite obvious. So that's a single light source. Now, I want to show you the difference between my overhead light and this LED that's used on the lamp of my table. This is the lamp that is, well, great big light that's above my drawing table, and it's on the ceiling. And for me personally, I love this light, and I love how it lights my subjects. I think it's a lot less harsh than the one that's on my table. And part of that is because it's so far away. Okay, so I've got my lamp on my table back on, and I will not be able to return the light exactly where it was. So, let's dissect the attributes of the light falling on the form. What we have with light is we have highlights, and we have the midtones, and we have object shadows, reflected light, and the cast shadow. Now your highlight is always going to be perfectly perpendicular to the light. So you can, I'm hoping you can see where it's shiny. I'm going to keep rotating it because I know my perspective is different from yours. But where you see this, the blade getting really, really shiny, that is perfectly perpendicular to the light, which means all surfaces that are at that angle are going to be picking up a highlight. Now, if you change that, you'll notice, it fades in and out, and those are definitely not. Those would be part of the midtones. Your midtone areas are basically all the areas that are not highlights or your dark darks. So if you're looking at a value scale, basically from 2 or 3 to 7, 8, those are going to be all of your midtone areas. So in a painting, in reality, about 85%, 90% of a painting is literally going to be the midtone areas. I mean, it's just huge. You use your highlights and your shadows and your darkest darks, which obviously are little stamens. Those are used for accent areas. You don't want to have a ton of highlights, and you don't want to have a ton of dark darks unless you intend to do that. Generally speaking, you want to have a lot of midtones and really pop with the highlights as well as the shadows. The object shadow is the side that's opposite on the other side of the light. Light can't get to it, so it's darker. The cast shadow, like this is casting a shadow on here. This is casting a shadow onto here. This is casting a shadow to here. This too is a cast shadow. So reflected light is when light shines down on the surface and it bounces back. Now watch this area right here. Do you see how much that lightens up? This surface is reflecting light onto your subject, and you can notice how it's getting darker right in here, and it's just kind of like the in-between point between this light and this light.